Welcome to Free Range Flock. We were once the latchkey kids who came home to an empty house after school. We were feral, resilient, cynical, and innovative. Older than Google. Our teenage faces were never posted on social media. The internet was just an idea in our youth. Now we are older, wiser, and thriving. Our independent ways will continue to serve us. We plan to keep defying the odds, and we will carve our own path with grace, with humor, with joy, our way. We've been through some stuff. We will continue to keep pushing, and we are not going anywhere. The former latchkey kids are now the free range flock.
So, Sass, did you ever have a midlife crisis? And if so, what was it like? I mean, I've known you for a long time, but we've never said, I think I'm having a midlife crisis. We've never kind of labeled it as that. But I mean, did you have one?
Well, I think that's funny because I don't know. I agree. I can't say I classify X as being a midlife crisis. But when I turned 40, I decided I was going to start running. Which is a little random because I never ran before. But for some reason, when I turned 40, I was like, I am going to see if I can do this. And I did. And I fell in love with it, just absolutely fell in love with it. And we would still be running if it wasn't for my weird feet. I love running. I love the meditativeness of it. I love how good it is for your body, just your heart and your muscles and, that impact keeps your bones strong. But, that was my midlife crisis, I guess.
I actually think, listening to you talk, I think I actually have had several. Is that weird to have?
No.
Do you think okay. Because I think I had several, because I think I had a midlife crisis while I was trying to get pregnant. So, and I also took up running, which is so weird that you said that. I'm like, God, I think I was having a midlife crisis. Because, I remember just being so angry with what life was handing me. I was working so hard to try to get pregnant, which never happened. But that definitely felt like I was going through a bit of a crisis at that time. And then I feel like I had one this year. I feel like this year has been a big pivotal moment in my life where things were not working the way it should. And I just kept thinking, this is not going to magically get better. I'm going to have to get off this course, get off this hamster wheel and change it up. And it was hard. But then when I made the decision and started to do it, then I started to feel lighter. I literally felt like, wow, this was really weighing down on me. And I had to kind of completely change things up. So, I think I've actually had more than one and on several different fronts. And so there's a saying that says that in order to have a midlife renaissance, it requires a crisis. But a crisis can look different for everyone. The word crisis is so, crazy. When you think of crisis, you think of what media tells us. What would it be? The whole classic, like the middle-aged man buys a sports car and dates younger women, or the women start dating, younger men, the cougars. This is what media tries to tell us. So what a midlife crisis is, but for a lot of us, it's just so different. But it's essentially your life is transitioning into something else. You come to that realization, become reflective, and go, is this who I am? It's kind of like the foundation of your life is kind of to shake under your feet. And you're like, okay, do I value this? So you start to question, your path or your ambition. You may feel a bit restless or irritable, and you start to reevaluate your decisions. You're kind of think differently about things.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, all change feels like crisis to your body. And so even when it's good change, it's disruption and it's unknown and it makes us uncomfortable. So like you were describing, feeling restless and irritable and reevaluating your decisions. And sometimes that's when change is forced upon us. But then sometimes it's also just your body signaling, hey, we need to do something differently here.
Right. So our lives are changing constantly.
Yeah.
They're never constant. We think they are, but they really aren't. Like our bodies are changing every day. We're watching our friends change, and watching them change and go through different things, like settling down or doing different things. And also we get things change because we're treated differently by different people. Like I noticed at work that people were treating me differently, and not in a mean way, but just from a you're a bit older, you've been around a bit, so that kind of thing. Like, okay, that seems a bit weird and different. But it's also a great time because once you get to the other side, you begin to have this type of renaissance in a way. Your focus changes and it becomes very sharp. You start to appreciate things differently. I noticed when I got to the other side of mine, I had this kind of wave of gratitude. Like, I stopped being frustrated and I realized, like, okay, I'm a healthy person. And yeah, I can't run because, I got crazy knees, but I can walk, and I started to focus on the things I could do, and like I enjoyed my company, and I still knew who I was, and I felt more at home in my skin, and I laughed more easily. So it felt good on the other side. So today we want to focus on how a midlife renaissance requires a crisis. So the word crisis sounds so scary. It's like that training montage that plays in those movies where the protagonist is like putting in all the hours at the gym, preparing for a fight, and you're putting all this work to transform. I only wish that music was playing during mine. It would have been really helpful. Like, I was having that crisis and like, the Rocky, training montage music was playing. I could have gone, oh, this is what's happening. I'm in that part of my life. Exactly. I'm in that. Got it.
Imagine if we actually had soundtracks to all of our crises in life. Oh, this is the growth moment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh. He's about to ask me out and my life's going to change forever. Oh, it's that moment. Okay. Got it. So helpful. If only.
That's so funny.
If only.
I love it.
But why do you think this happens? Why do we have to go through that crisis in order to get to that other side?
Well, I think crisis is, like I was kind of alluded to earlier, a crisis is change. It sometimes it's good change and sometimes it's bad change, but it takes that moment of catharsis or that break that gets our attention.
Right.
And I think that's, maybe crisis isn't the right word.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the change point versus something that's an actual crisis.
Right.
Because it sometimes change is good. Sometimes that period of that instant of change is something that's very much needed for our lives.
Right.
So maybe crisis is a bad framing for that.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, we all tend to, myself included, get set in our ways.
Oh, yeah.
And so sometimes you need some disruption to kind of bring your attention to it. And that disruption feels like a crisis in that moment. And maybe, that's where the word kind of fits. But I mean, I do think the word needs to be changed a great deal. But I think that once you go through that change and live through it, it makes you think about things a lot differently.
Definitely.
So when did you feel like your renaissance really start? Like, what did you here's the point in my life when it changed and it went from crisis to renaissance.
Oh, I love that you chose the word renaissance. So when I saw your talking points for this episode, I saw the word renaissance and I was like, that is such a cool word, but I need to actually have to define it because that's the way my brain works.
Yeah.
So it means revival or renewed interest. So, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
So sometimes renaissance is, you just get really excited about something, right? But I always associate the word renaissance with that period of great music and art that exploded in the 14th to the 16th centuries. And yes, I did look that up because I'm like that. So anyway, none of that would have happened if it wasn't for the Black Death.
Oh.
So you were talking about that that crisis and then that growth afterwards, that to me is the perfect example of it. Because the plague that happened and all those people died freed up all these resources that would not have been available for people to explore art and music and literature and all those things. And while I don't advocate needing a plague, sometimes we do need a dramatic event to kick off personal growth. And I think sometimes it's thrust upon us. A person might get laid off, or they might have a physical change like a broken foot or a hip. And those kinds of changes feel kind of like an affront because we're not necessarily ready for them. But then there are other types of change, like a gradual awakening and the need for that shift. And those are the types of change that I really love.
Right.
But all change is needed to be healthy, because if we don't change, we stagnate.
Right.
And what happens when things stagnate? They die.
They rot and die. Fester.
Exactly. Exactly. So as uncomfortable as change is, I think it's essential.
Yeah, but the thing to keep in mind is that it's pretty great on the other side. So sometimes you gotta lean into it. You gotta do it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And it's not an overnight thing. It's not this waking up, and it's not like in the movies where you just kind of wake up and everything's full color and butterflies. It's just not that way. To me, it was a journey of gratitude. It's kind of like, let me take stock in who I am, and I keep doing this, and do I value it? And if I don't, I need to change my focus and use my energy differently. So I needed to, really change that and appreciate myself in a real way. And I mean in a real way, not because people are complimenting me, but because I truly believe it in my core, okay? Like, people will say at work, oh, you're really good at this. And I'll say thank you. But having that renaissance is like, I am good at this. I know who I am. Thank you. No one needs to give me that compliment, because I know in my gut. That's a big deal. And you realize your own worth and your value, and all those setbacks were lessons. Like, all those times when people told me no, or those things that I wanted, I realized those were lessons, and I survived every one of my bad days. Like, I remember when I had my miscarriage, and I just thought, I was not going to be able to pull out that slump. I survived that. I ended up adopting a fantastic son, and it's the best thing in the world that happened to me. So, and I kept kicking. I kept coming in and doing it. So, but it's finally realizing that, stay in that relationship or job or whatever it is not magically going to get better. It's like, I'm going to keep plugging along and it's going to get better. If you realize, no, it's not. And I need to, today is the day, and you get there, and then it's like peeling the layers of an onion. So it's not like Monday I was having a crisis and Tuesday was my renaissance. It is a process.
Oh, yeah.
And, but once you start, then you can't stop.
And it's definitely, I like the onion analogy, it's definitely layers of things, but it's also, it's not linear. So you have to remember that sometimes you're moving forward and sometimes you're moving backwards. Yeah. And it feels incredibly uncomfortable while you're in the middle of it.
Right.
You and I were talking before we started recording today, and talking about that learning curve, and learning curves are so important to remember, because if nothing is linear, and you have this momentum when you first get started, and you go, okay, I'm going to do this change thing. And so that's the hard bit, is getting started. And so that's why you have so much adrenaline, but it's also the hardest part. And that's when you're going to suck. It's the suckage.
Suckage.
But, once you get to the top and you get that leveling off, that's where you're competent, and that's where you're an expert. And that's when it starts to feel really good. And then you got that nice downward slope on the other side.
So, and we've obviously gone through one or more crises, and we're now on the other side. So, Sara, what does your renaissance look like?
It's a constant for me. It's constantly learning those lessons of that renewal of faith in myself, and faith in my family, and faith in the world. And there are days where I think this all sucks. But it's a constant thing. The thing that I think keeps me going is just knowing that when you get to the other side, when you have that moment of change,
right,
it's going to get better, and you're going to feel better, and you're going to know more, and you're going to be a better person.
Right. For me, it was the slowing down. Because I've always been a person who wants to be in a million different things. And I was working multiple jobs and then doing lots of different things, and just realized that I wasn't enjoying everything and my job. I was hoping like one day they're going to realize that I need more money. That day never came, because they were like, you keep doing it for this. Why would we ever give you more? And that kind of the waking up and like, okay, I've got to change jobs and not work a million jobs. I want to do, one or two, hopefully one, and just slow my life down. And where I'm phasing things out, and like, there's the core things that we're going to do, and we can do all those other things, but we need time just to sit on the couch and just do nothing. I didn't have that before. And people would say things like, did you watch this show? And I'm like, I haven't turned my TV on in days. What are you talking about? So
yeah.
I needed that. And setting some clear boundaries when it came to that, and saying no to things. Like if I get invited to something and saying no. Or my infamous thing was, I'll let you know. Or I'll think about that, which was a delayed no, by the way. I think if people figured that out, was a delayed no.
That's we'll see.
Yeah,
in
we'll
my
see.
household, yes.
We'll see. Yeah. But now I say no, and I don't have any guilt. Like, no, I'm saving that time for this. And just that you cannot love anybody else until you truly love yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You can't it's like, they're going to give me enough love that I don't have to love myself, or they're going to, no. You have to love yourself before you can really love other people. And, I dig me. And I got some weirdness. I got some weirdness, some issues, some weaknesses, but they're all mine, and it's lovely. So I own it all my crazy, and I like it.
But I think we all are that way. None of us are. I used to know this guy who was a doctor, and he said there is no normal. Normal is just all of the abnormal average together. You know what I mean?
Setting on the dryer.
Right. It's the bell curve. It's just the thing in the middle.
Yeah.
And we have to stop trying to say what's normal and what's not normal, because there is no such thing.
Right.
But I did have a question for you, though.
Oh.
So we were talking about Renaissance and midlife. Like, what do you see? I mean, what do you see people around you doing for their Renaissance? I mean, besides the stereotype of the sports car.
I see people around me doing very similar things, in that they are slowing their lives down, and doing less, saying no if they don't want to do it, which is lovely. I love seeing people around me like really kind of like, I'm going to get into my art, or I want to get into my hobby, like really like now is the time. I don't want to waste this time. I want to do this time. But just seeing people be more comfortable with themselves, and just I always talked about how my mom for her entire life was on a diet, just like being on a diet. Like I see people when they get to this, like, this is who I am. I'm just going to stay healthy, and just, this is who I am. Just stop trying to constantly like, I'm going to get better, improved, and then one day I'm going to feel good about myself. No, I feel good about myself right now, the size that I am right now, and whatever. So that's what I see. I see what's happening to me is happening to people around me. So
I would agree. And I think that one of the things that the pandemic kind of did, we're talking about Renaissance and plagues. And I kind of feel like people are owning what they want to create more. I see people like it awakened something. The pandemic awakened something in people, and we started this podcast. I'm seeing people make music. I'm seeing people start painting again who might not have been painting for a long time. So I feel like we've realized that our lifespans are short,
right? And
that this Renaissance is about let's be creative,
right?
So embrace your creativity, y'all.
Yeah, and just life is short. And as you get older, you realize just how quick life is short. Because I feel like yesterday I was in high school. I mean, literally, I felt like I was young just the other day.
I know.
And it does go super, super fast. And it's just, if it's not making you happy and you don't value it, stop doing it.
Agreed.
Stop doing it. And even if you're doing it for someone else, just say, I just can't do this. I can't live up to your expectations. I can only live up to my own. And you got to make yourself happy, and stop waiting for someone else to make you happy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that whole kind of like,
huge.
if I just had this, that mentality is just not going to work.
Yeah.
So be happy right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, find that joy and keep it and own it. Own your crazy, own who you are, and love it.
Yep.
So today we talked about how a midlife renaissance requires a crisis. We really like the word renaissance, like that kind of rebirth, like, finding ourselves. Not always in love with the word crisis. I think change is, a time of change, even though I think we're changing constantly anyway, what it is. So I do think that saying is true, that you kind of have to go through that moment of like very serious self-reflection before you can get to the other side of really owning who you are.
Oh, yeah.
When you go, especially in that midlife place. We've had, and then you can have multiple crises. Like if I've had multiple, you mentioned one. Do you think you have more than one, or just was that your one big one?
Oh, you mean the running thing?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I've done lots of things. I mean,
Like crises?
Not crisis per se, but usually I'm trying to back up. So there's going to be an edit there. I wouldn't call it necessarily always a crisis. Sometimes it's just, I feel a need to try something different. I need to change.
Right.
We were talking about change and how we need to continue to grow and change. And so that's just the way my brain works.
Right.
Like I need that. But the Renaissance, with crisis, I do feel like I've had multiple of those. I mean, as a human being,
Right.
I'm constantly changing. Whether it's a job or whether it's a relationship or whether it's, I need to change my health because there's something going on. So yeah, I think we all go through multiple.
And I don't think we get done, to be honest with you.
No.
I mean, I'm 54. I can see myself very easily getting in my 60s and getting close to retirement and go, I'm going to change this up, and in my 80s and hope, God willing, my 90s and whatever beyond. I think that's just going to be part of that. But once you go through a couple, you realize you did come out the other side, just like feeling really good.
Oh, definitely. I think the more you're willing to change and keep yourself open to change, the easier the process gets. I mean, no one likes to go through a crisis.
No.
Like we all go through these really rough times at work or at home, and it sucks so bad when you're in the middle of it. But it's kind of like, with that age comes perspective of knowing this is just a moment in time and I will get past it.
Right.
And we just have to realize it. And if you don't feel like that you're able to get past it on your own, there are people out there that can help you through those transitions.
Definitely. It's a deep level of honesty with yourself. And so I've had several, but there was like this one recent one, I could not get through it. I needed to talk to a therapist. And so I actually reached out, and it was very helpful. And I needed someone to ask me those tough questions and like hold my feet to the fire about my answers and go deeper. So reaching out for help, whether it's someone professional or someone that you trust in your friend circle, definitely let someone help you get through it if you can't get through it on your own. But
Definitely.
The key message here is that we're all going through this, and it feels scary in there, but on the other side, it feels really good.
Yeah. Just don't get lost in it. Definitely lean on your community.
Lean in, girl. Lean in, boy.
So if you haven't found us on social media yet, please find us on TikTok and on Instagram and on Facebook, and tell us, what is your renaissance? What's going on in your life? Is it something that you're going through now, or something that that happened in the past? We'd love to hear about it.
Definitely.
So thanks for listening, y'all. Thank you for joining us for Free Range Flock. Our goal is to inspire and celebrate who we are, the Generation X kids who grew up and decided to do things their way, with grace, humor, and joy. This has been a production of SassyAm. If you want to learn more about our podcast, follow our blog, share your positive insights about being a free ranger, or to suggest topics or guests for future episodes, please visit our website at sassayam.com. That's SASSAYAM.com. Keep pushing.